Greetings, folks. How you doing? Okay, we're live. At least I'm live. Doing a little bit of solo bit here. This is kind of a test effort to see if we can actually do a Q&A session, as this has been required, or excuse me, requested of some people. This is a test essentially to see if the Q&A section works. Now, most of the time it hadn't been working because I had forgotten to start it before the launch of everything, but I indeed started it. So the question and answer thing is up. It's live. We're live. And here we go. Basically what I wanted to do actually for this Q&A session, something small, something, nothing in particular. I was actually going to make this kind of quick. Just give you an idea of, probably narrow down the roles for you. Seems to be a lot of questions about it, at least even within the members usually, so I like to point out any other things that I could, like clarify any things, because usually our roles are in a state of flux as they are at any one given time, and like to fix that. Basically where they stand is the interceptor is the primary fighter, and the interceptor is your heavy nose, straight edge, straight flying, that intercepts other aircraft. Straightest, fastest, highest, everything you got. That's what that plane is. It's pretty much the only basic pure fighter we're going to be using. Has its standard, it's like the longest range, but in order to have yet another perhaps pure interceptor, we can go, you can obviously have as many as you want. If you think you can have a medium range, a short range, it's entirely up to you. Point of fact, I was thinking about bringing in a short range fighter myself. For what, I don't really know. Just probably another way to get an aircraft out there, but I'm thinking the short range fighter would probably come in handy protecting your immediate airspace, whereas the interceptor is kind of like, for me, for example, I keep one sitting outside my door. If somebody to come out there and just launch an assault on me, I can grab one at the door, and I know that it can reach all the way out to the end of my airspace and beyond, in case somebody tries to fly in here. Short range is kind of like in use if you're already in the combat zone and you want to fly it over your head and just protect your airspace in general if you're already at the front lines. That's basically, as I see, the two ranges being for interceptor and what would be termed as the defense fighter. Now the other one, since we eliminated like support, is basically amalgamation of attack and strike. We're still keeping CAS, the CAS role, but it's not close air support as the real military air forces usually call it. We're going to consider it probably more like CIS, like close in strike or close air strike, something along those lines. It will be considered, what I'm thinking is like the shortest range version of these are going to be called attack, and the longest range will be strike. And I see well, probably about 4. So you could have 2 attacks and 2 strikes, and I figure strike is the longer range version, attack is the shorter range version. It still boils down to the same type of role. You're still attacking the enemy, you're still striking at the enemy, therefore they're not fighters, but they are. And this is where, yes, it gets kind of confusing, but we have eliminated attack has like a acronym, so there are no more like attack wings, attack groups, attack units, so on and so forth. There never was any support that were considered attack, so was strike. But now that we've eliminated all the loose fighters like dog fighters, control fighter, patrol fighter, all of that being gone, the interceptors being fighters, we wanted to use the A for airlift, again, as the militaries like to do, instead of C as cargo. So what we did was we eliminated cargo, eliminated attack, called them all fighters, and then A is back to being airlift. So now when you see A, for example, the 5th AW is not a 5th AW, is now the 5th fighter, and probably wing. It helps in the acronyms, and I like using airlift. It keeps it a little bit more real. Nobody usually ever differentiates between their attack and fighter squadrons anyway. So anyway, but so CAS, close air support, no more. Close air strike, that's what we're going with. BAI, battlefield air interdictor, probably will keep. That will probably be the short to medium range attack aircraft, strike aircraft. Keep in mind, again, strike and attack are considered one and the same. Just for our use of terminology, attack aircraft are slightly shorter range than the strike aircraft, which are slightly longer range. And again, in this case, we got close air support, which is the shorter ones. Then we got battlefield air interdictors, which will be the slightly longer ranged. Then we start getting into the strike versions, and I have yet to figure out a way to enumerate, like, acronymize these, other than the fact that, like, a strike interdictor might be the medium to long range, and then the longest range will be just the strike penetrator. Um, and that's pretty much it. Is like essentially the four ranges. Even four is kind of diverse, but we need to have some planes, So, and again, up to any particular member getting in, joining, and so on and so forth, how many they see fit. The five, those are going to be the base five. I want the base five to be those five: the interceptor fighter, and then the four attack strikers, two shorter range, two longer range. So there's still five, which there always has been. To a degree, there's always has been. There was one time we dangled a four roll entry, and I didn't really like that. So I like people to think of different planes, think of as many planes as they possibly can. So you have those five, and again, totally up to you. I mean, if you want to diversify so that there's like 8 different ranges, be my guest. I mean, as long as you have the base five, and that's all we really care about. I mean, if you have the base five, you can start a base, you can start your wing, you can start your squadrons and diversifications. After that, it's totally up to you. I mean, other than the fact that you obviously let us know exactly how many more you've got in there, like, hey, I've got 5 more strike aircraft with different range things, or I want 2 different strike aircraft. Now, the kicker to that is, of course, I already have a few more. I consider one in the what I like to call, well, I try to call it DEED. I kind of don't like it. We'll probably end up calling it DEAD. The defeat or deception of enemy air defenses, kind of like the SEAD rule the Wild Weasels have. The real Air Force has, like the F4G, the F-16 CJ, as they call it, or CG, I think, as they call it. Regardless, they used to call it the Wild Weasels, and that's kind of what ours do. Is essentially, in real world terms, what they do is they go in first, seek out the enemy radar, attempting to locate the main battle force and take it out so the radars are shut down, so surface to air weapons are shut down. Defeat those, and then you can go in pretty much unmolested. The paper airplane world, of course, nothing like that. Well, okay, something like that could exist if you have a rocket core, and some of us do. But also, in case you want to, entice the interceptors to being thrown, you launch the dead aircraft, and it's kind of ironic because they might be killed, but at least your primary attack, your primary strikers, the fleet will not be subdued, and you go in with those. It's highly effective. Well, at least on paper, it's a highly effective looking kind of system. Now, as far as any others, though, again, diversification is obviously recommended or suggested. Obviously, make yourself as many planes as you possibly can. We'll squadronize them if you want. I have like, well, at least I looked at it. I have like about 10 of them going right now that I want to mess around with. So how I plan to diverse them, I don't know. I'm not exactly going to play around with the roles. I might have some test flights here coming up on Vernal Timber 16. I might do some test flights and find out exactly who's longer range, who's shorter range, and see where they're going to go. I'm not really looking at replacing anything. If they have augmentation, I'll augment another plane. Right now, I'm looking at whether or not Wyvern and Nova go head to head, exactly who's got the longer range and what they're going to do, especially since Nova's been doing so good. And then there's Venom NG. Venom has been doing stunningly. I really don't know how I'm going to play off. Venom's a tricky bird to fly, but I took this one. This is the primary version. Mark, you'll remember this one. This is the one you chased down at La Follette 4 years ago. If I start mass producing these, if they fly like that, we've got a potentially good fighter here. I've got a potentially good striker here. Um, Superior long range. I figured that flight was a fluke, but I don't really care. um, I'm going to see, like, if there is a differential in the roles on any one given day. I mean, this test is probably going to go through the year and see on different days exactly how they fly. See if I can try one on a non-windy day. See if I can try one on a super windy day. How they do, how they fare. I don't expect. I don't expect much. I expect to find that most planes are probably going to fly pretty much the same. I bet. I bet really Wyvern going head to head against Nova, and they're probably going to be about the same plane. I really do expect that, but we shall see as it goes on. In any case, if you have these situations where a plane is going to be similar or even dissimilar, or I don't know. I mean, if the roles look pretty much the same, I mean, or if the plane looks pretty much the same in its flight plan, therefore it flies the same distance, it flies the same type. I mean, yeah, if you've got obviously if you got a plane that pretty much flies straight, you got the interceptor, so you might want to think about either having 3 or 4 interceptors, or you may think about just I don't want to use that one as a striker. Yeah, definitely you want the striker to be a little more unpredictable. Unpredictable is key. Interceptor doesn't matter. Nothing's going to intercept it but itself. So you could use them dogfight and strike back at each other, sure, but it's not really going to make much of a difference to the planes themselves. You're not going to throw them at each other. Not the interceptors themselves. Your interceptors are pretty much used to just stop the strikers from acquiring you and bombing you and so on and so forth. How that relates out to on the squadron level, though, is obviously you have your base 5. Now, if you want more, it will be totally up to you, especially in the amount of bases, as to if you want to use the others. We've got a couple of members that go on with just having 40 planes and just squadronizing only about half of them, but even half is way more than the standard 5, of course. We don't care. We obviously don't care. It'd be nice to have as many planes as you possibly can. Um, but having 3, 4, or 5 do the exact same role, no problem. Just as long as you have that one doing the role. Or if you choose to have just the one do the role while you consider the rest in test, or that's what the reserves are for too, you go right ahead. That's what essentially keeping all the bases are for. It's nice to have bases. You can base some somewhere and some somewhere else and consider them less used, more used, whatever. Eventually what we do is there will be some major like op evals, operation evaluations, operational evaluations that is, that will like we might look through your planes and see like, okay, we're going to have a scenario, we're going to have a test scenario before we do some flying exercises, and we're going to find out like the enemy is striking you. How do you plan on preventing, preempting, so on and so forth, defending against the oncoming attack? I don't know about how the rest of our members are, but I have a war plan written up for how I would do it. That would require, I know it's pretty in depth, and again, with paper airplanes, yeah, doesn't really matter. It's not like I got planes based everywhere that I've ever been. They're all with me here, but it's really cool to look at it and say, like, well, first the transports will airlift support in from the other bases that they come around from the nearest locations, especially if it's like a regional conflict. And regional, we just consider the nearest couple states. And then we just start bringing in more material and more aircraft to fight on the front. But that will, the standardization will, you will get a chance to see how your forces stack up against other forces, and you'll see how you respond to any threats that should come your way. I would like to think that there's probably a good way to get all the planes involved, but the whole reason for having different bases is that some planes can be in the bag of in case you have like a two-front war, two-front battle. Somebody attacks your flank while your front lines are being assaulted currently. That's kind of like a ground pounding thing, but still, it's nice to think like if you have, say, you only have 10 interceptors, and God forbid you should only have 10 interceptors, but say you have 10 interceptors, if they're all in use, putting off the main front line and you're being attacked by someone else behind you, what are you going to do? This is part of why the Oppa Valve comes in handy. But again, like you're basing your squadrons, putting the planes in different bases, really, that's up to you. It doesn't really matter how you do it. You're looking at having all your planes are in one basket anyway, but it is nice to think about the fact that you can have coverage in another state. And this is why we actually put our little tail codes, fin codes, like most Air Forces do, as to where the planes belong somewhere along in the U.S. That's mostly just for fun. Obviously, you have most of your planes with you at all times, so that depends on how you respond to the attack. Basically, it's having your 5 squadrons and then using, or your 5 core aircraft or more, and then using them to their potential in a battle space experience. I don't imagine many people getting involved, like, okay, you could use rockets. Rockets are technically not your design, of course, but they're pretty effective in paper airplane warfare. So if you have access to and the use of something like bottle rockets or Saturns or, well, any of those various sorts of firecrackers, they work highly effectively. Saturns, as a matter of fact, point of fact, I use Saturns as defense rockets at all of my bases. I usually have at least 3 Saturn batteries, if not more, at all times. They come in handy. Try to fly through one of those. Try to walk through one of those. You don't want to. It's really good defense. But it's down to whether or not, like others, I mean, I used to consider the bottle rockets ICBMs, kind of. I mean, they have a warhead, you get launched, but of course they never really drop down on the enemy. Could, but then we're talking about entering the dangerous aspect of it, so we don't really want to get into that. And once one of us figures out a way to actually mount them in the ground and keep them safe and launch them onto the ground, oh, that will be so cool. But trust me, I've got the studies. I can even put up drawings about things that I had with these rockets. But in the meantime, for right now, we just involve them as solely pretty much defensive weapons, try to get through them. This boils down to the planes themselves, your designs, your flights. How will you defend yourself? And again, what we're doing is we're just making sure that you can defend yourself and you can go on the offensive. You're on the defensive and you can go on the offensive, or we can strike should we need to. I don't like to think of it as we're like a first strike kind of weapon, but if you have the capability, go for it. Why not? You know, somebody's manhandling. I used to go on reconnaissance runs myself, just when I'm as simple as taking the dog for a walk through a neighborhood. If you take the dog for a walk through your neighborhood and you see somebody's paper airplane lying there and, hey, that's not mine, pick it up and then take it back to the room for psychoanalysis. Take it back to the warehouse to see exactly what's with this plane, you know. Who built this? Why did they build this? Is this anything I should be worried about? Most of the times I had nothing to worry about. But it is nice to do, you know. It's nice to think of. It's like, hey, maybe they can join. I don't know. It used to be in my neighborhood anyway. It's like I flew out front of my house a lot. I mean, I still do. But people know that I flew, so it's like if you're flying planes anywhere else, you know that I'm the one that's flying. So you either come to me and say like, hey, what are you doing? And let's pool our resources. Let's join up. See if you want to join InthPath. Or you like, oh, he likes flying. Don't say anything. You're building up a force behind my back, so on and so forth. Yeah, that's kind of a devious way of looking at it, and like, hey, let's start a fight and everything. And that's not what this is all about, but it is kind of fun. Just think about, let's go to battle, so on and so forth. Yeah, paper airplane battles can get kind of cool, but we would like to just get everybody together and pool and talk about, compare, and ultimately it's like whenever we fly to flight or fight or anything like that, we're just considered training, and those are exercises. They get intense, yes. You can definitely test out other birds. In some cases, like if you're going up against somebody's interceptors, maybe you'll want to think about, hey, I might want to actually not do that, and maybe I want to not use good planes because he's going to send up interceptors, and that brings up like why they're going into paces. Paces is a whole other topic and kind of related to, but paces, if you haven't read about it before, is our paper aircraft combat evaluation school. Um, we have it stationed like it's considered master stationed in South Carolina. Any and all of your planes are considered attached to it. Not like like these sitting right here, but you specify one or three others, and they get special markings that they belong to Paces, and like it's kind of like Red Flag, Top Gun, so on and so forth. It's the place where you go and fight and train against all kinds of combat methods. There's different units out there, flights that we call them, and it's just specifically for the roles involved. Like the bombers go into one, the cargo planes go into one, the interceptors go into one, and the attackers go into another, and the flights are separated. Even helicopters are involved. And they get in there and they do, well, it's just testing. It's like one member, if you're involved in a PACES kind of competition, as it were, you get involved in it, you make the call, you set up some people that might want to come out there and then say, hey, let's do some PACES combat or PACES training. So you head out there and bring certain planes, any particular planes you want, like, and then set the scenarios up with your partner that you come out there with or with the people that you come out there with, and just say, I would like to test my interceptors against your strikers, your medium range strikers. Let's say you have broached the perimeter, and then proceed to, set your lines, set your boundaries, and then fly off. PACES can get really cool. They can also get really in depth. I like to think it's a good way to test all of your reactiveness, all of your planning that you would go into on having these aircraft do what it is they need to do to attack, defend, strike, win. But I consider it important to have. I mean, you need to have something like that. And it's also important to have your training aircraft just the same. You want to have trainers too, because again, that boils down to everybody. Everybody has been through this. I mean, yes, you were a little kid, you started flying a plane, you built and flew a plane. Oh, that's cool. You get older, it takes more time, they fly better, and you kind of don't want nobody crushing your birds. So when it comes to that point, if you have a little tyke, if you have somebody experienced, you don't want to mess with your good stuff. This is what your trainers are for. Now, I mean, granted, your trainers can be pretty good in their own right, but I don't know about you, but I definitely don't want nobody grabbing one of my wyverns, especially one of my venoms, before they, get a nice opportunity to grab something like Quill. And Quill's not a good start. I don't like it. If I can get Burst working, Burst is going to be the light trainer. Matter of fact, I'm really close to doing that because I think Burst is going to serve that purpose grossly. I mean, just because they don't fly with a squat, but they do fly best when you throw them lightly, and that's all I need. I really don't need this plane to do outrageous things. So I may just keep the plane as it is. Matter of fact, believe it or not, right in front of you right now, I think I just talked myself into that. I think I'm just going to upgrade Burst to the light throw trainer, and be done with it. Got to figure out its official name, but that way, it's the plane that you should like teach anybody to initially teach anybody to launch their planes with. Is like, okay, here, do not grab it by the wing, do not grab it by the rudder, do not touch it anywhere but the nose, the center of gravity forward. Then you introduce them to the center of gravity, and so on and so forth. That's what those trainers are for. The Litro trainer even more so, just because, I mean, your Hatro trainer, yeah, it's good because technically it should be your most durable, and being durable, it should be able to take some abuse in the wing, in the body, in the nose, so on and so forth. If you have a Litro trainer, it's probably going to be built lighter, so it's probably not going to take as much abuse, so you're not going to want people to grab it any other way. So perhaps your Hatro trainer is the one that you should initially start to introduce people to your aircraft with. I mean, again, you don't want people like you have a plane sitting like this and say, hey, don't pick up it by the way, because they grab it this way. I trust myself. I know this is my plane. I'm not really holding it with much pressure, and I know a Wyvern can put up with it. But would you want somebody doing that? Would you want somebody 7 years old who you don't want to discern from flying paper airplanes? You want everybody to fly. I mean, it'd be nice. It's fun to watch. But you don't want them to say, "Stop that! Don't touch my plane." This is what the trainers are for. You bring them out, you let people abuse them. That's fine, no problem. I don't really care. It's not a combat aircraft. It didn't take me 4 hours to build one plane. And again, this is what your trainer should be. Like me and Dalton, KIA's owner, we always joke about the 15-second plane. Mark, you know what that is. Any of y'all have tried this? Is just take a sheet of paper and fold it into a plane. And actually, we call it, I can do the 5-second plane. We call it a 10-second plane. But that one, obviously, you don't give a crap about that. That's fine. Don't give a crap about that. But that should be, if you can make something like that, something basic, something that doesn't require your blood, sweat, and tears, and your rulers and your tape and your glue and so on and so forth, that is the one that should be like your Metro or your HO trainer and say, here, throw this. Now, here's what I want you to do. Here's how I want you to do it. You can color it gaudy. It doesn't have to be camouflage. It doesn't have to be nothing. You can, like, put little diagrams on it. Hold here. Don't hold here. So on and so forth. Again, this is what you reserve the training aircraft for. Combat aircraft, no, not so much. So that's how, again, trainers, I mean, to call them trainers is, yeah, it's loose, but it is training people how to throw your plane, so it works. Again, you don't want them touching your supreme works of art. You want them touching your almost total pieces of crap. Okay. The bombers and the cargo planes. Because of where I'm at right now and where I have been for like 20 years, I kind of treat them the same planes, and they basically are really. I mean, your medium transport, medium bomber, because of their role, can pretty much be interchangeable. It can be the same plane, just slightly different. This is what I do. I mean, my light transport, my medium, well, no, not my light transport, but my medium transport and my heavy bomber, and, well, excuse me, let me not confuse you. My medium transport, medium bomber, heavy transport, heavy bomber, are the same plane with minor tweaks. They are different. I don't like them to be exactly the same because why? I mean, would it be cool if they were all 4 different planes? Yeah, of course. But I'm dealing with, I don't really know what to do with those right now. So right now they're interchangeable. And could be. I mean, your bomber technically, every time I get into it, I always consider exactly what I say when I say it. It's like your heavy transport, yeah. I mean, you're expected to actually hold 1, 2, or more. In the case of Dalton, KIA builds massive ones, in case you hadn't read on IFAF today. Their transports can hold up to 4, up to 6 planes, among other things that they expected to carry in the combat zone. Will they fly very far? No. Will they fly straight? Hopefully. That's what you expect out of those. And the reason why the bomber differentiates from the transport is just that. Transports only have to fly straight, level, and pretty short, because really what they're supposed to do, being purely support aircraft, is if you go into a battle, if you're fighting somebody, say it's around your house. If you've got a friend that has access, because again, in a combat situation, you don't want all your planes at the front line. They could be attacked, they could be assaulted, they could be destroyed. So you keep them back at the house, and you have a friend back there. He puts, like, you're running out of planes at the front lines. You need more interceptors. You need more strikers. Call him up. He puts 1, 2, 4, or more on the transport. Throws the transport to you. You have them. See how that works? I mean, this could get really in depth. I mean, especially if you have multitudes of friends working for you on this one, but. You hope to have these planes. You hope to be able to get material up to the front line, which is you. Assuming it's you, I'd like to think it's you. You get to the front line, you need planes, you need material. And by material, I mean like tape, glue, staples, stapler, hell, a hole punch, although highly dubious during battle situations. But anything to repair aircraft, in case they took battle damage. Outside of folding. Mostly tape in this situation, but maybe spare pieces of paper in case there's a hole. You never know. This is the stuff the transport should be able to carry, and this is why it needs to be a pretty much straight line flyer that doesn't really stray off of level flight. I mean, it's probably going to be carrying something on top of the wings, so you're going to want to keep it short, sweet, and level. And again, if you're the scenario I always picture is you got a friend at the front door of your house protecting the bulk of your fleet. You're on the front lines, attacking, defending from there. You have problems or you need more birds. He loads up the transport, the planes, or the material needed. He throws them to you. And it's imperative that that transport flies straight to you and stays level so it keeps its cargo. Um, right now, Kay and Sil are working on a combination, or at least a couple planes. Kay is really good with size. Working on figuring out a way to carry cargo, outsized cargo, or regular size cargo in a modular configuration in a flying wing sort of aircraft. Um, Now, before any of y'all get excited about something like some of the people have been mentioning about how flying wings can operate, and yes, the broad wing, thin chord with a small aspect ratio wing would not work in this situation. We would need something simply of like this kind of caliber or larger, more like this kind of caliber. And the entire thing is a wing with no fuselage. And what we're thinking of is something like they can actually carry a tube, a box, so on and so forth. They can be attached to the bottom of the whole set of wing, and that tube, that box, carries the material. And of course, it keeps it flyable, straight on. Is it a good idea? Well, it sounds good. Will it work? I don't know. We expect KIA to be flying something like that sometime soon, because let's face it, it's KIA and he builds monsters. But anyway, that's transports and bombers. Again, where I sit right now, bombers are just pretty much an offshoot of the transports. But the difference is mostly they can fly a little bit farther and don't have to fly straight and level. So herein lies your difference. Size-wise, okay, size and structure are where we come across the issues. We always think about, like, especially in my case, because they're interchangeable. I like to think of the transport aircraft are a little bit lighter, or structures a little bit less firm than the bombers, because the bombers have to carry, well, in my case, I think they have to carry sand and rockets, anything that can be brought to bear against the enemy. Yes, in the past, Paper Airplane War One that I was involved in the mid '80s, it pretty much destroyed the bombers outright. But the potential to actually destroy other aircraft and weapons on the aircraft is greater now, and I look at the bomber having it needing more structure, more sturdiness to be able to carry weapons of any sort, as opposed to the transport. And yes, you're already saying, like, okay, well, the transport carries other planes, carries big things, carries your tape. My God, how much structure does it need? But see, the thing is that transport really only need to carry that structure in the body. I mean, KIA has shown advancement in carrying aircraft on its wings. Sure, I mean, let's just say that those roles are in flux because of what you can do in various ways. We're not trying to pin down anything. We're trying to broaden everybody's scope of everything. So if you can launch a plane and a rocket off of a wing, well, then the wing's got to be sturdy enough to handle both things. So, pretty much, I guess it's up to you. I just picture it as, again, transports just don't need to fly as far or do as much, but they need to be straight and level. That's pretty much it, and it's important. So I see the bombers as doing a little bit more. And because, if nothing else, here's the thing, the bomber probably has to be thrown harder. Therefore, the structure's got to be stronger. You're expecting the bomber to fly around, to fly deeper than, or at least as deep as your strike aircraft. Okay, well, then the structure needs to be, like, stern enough, strong enough to actually be able to handle that. So, sure, most of them can be strong enough to carry stuff, but can it be strong enough to carry the stuff and hold on to, or like withstand whatever kind of throw you can give it? Yeah, that's where we're at. Um, I'm happy with my setup the way it is, except that it's not diverse enough for my taste. And again, we consider the bombers and transports to be pretty much in a state of flux, and as we develop the technologies. Um, any input on that, of course. Anybody got any ideas as to how that goes? You might guess, bring that up, please. We could use it. I encourage all of that. Any and all of this talk would be great. We're looking at like sizable aircraft. Now, when we say sizable, too, we this is basically your standard sheet of paper plane. You know, I mean, all of these are that you see in front of you. The Venom, the Wyvern here, they're all standard sheets of paper. We're talking stuff like calendar sheets, like this here. This is your desk calendar sheet. This is usually what I make my heavy transports out of, and it works highly effectively, but or even heavy bombers, and it can be used to make medium-sized ones depending on how you do it. There's no real set parameter on size. Like you don't really say like, okay, anything. This one's 6 inches long. You don't say anything like 8 inches or above is like medium size, and 12 inches or above is large. No, nothing like that. It's not like weights either. It doesn't even literally have to be how much it carries, but that is what we look at as like, well, if it can carry a lot, I guess it's a heavy transport. But if it's superseded, well, heavy transport just became the not so heavy transport. And again, that's all in the eye of the beholder. If you decide to have 8 transports, hey, more power to you. I would like to be able to do that myself. I'm hopefully working towards that right now as we speak, but especially with KA leading the way. And let me just go ahead and say the key word here is poster board. If you all haven't tried it, give it a try. It starts out large, it folds good, it provides great structure. Yeah, that's how we got some Sabertooths to be rather large. And hey, for all we know, that's the future. I haven't tested it on a bomber capacity yet, but stay tuned. That could be coming. And really, that's actually, now I think about it, that's pretty much it. You've seen, okay, we've talked about how you've got your basic strike, attack, and fighter aircraft, the core 5. Then you have the 3 versions of transport, the 3 versions of bomber, light, medium, and heavy of both of those. Different variants, of course. Again, up to you if you want to make different aircraft. I'm working on using the W bodies or the O bodies as something like what I call the very important cargo, the VIC. I know it's kind of stupid, almost stupid, but not really. It's just another way to get another plane out there. I'm trying to diversify, you know. I have so many planes in the stable, I want to be able to use all of them. So, and not as like, I don't want 5 different interceptors, I guess, but maybe I can. I mean, if I can, I can, but I just get stuck on using all kinds of technology on one different bird. Hence why I'm still carrying around phases and javelins that are 30 years old. But if you find something, that's the other thing, is you got to find something better. And I mean, sure, I've built some planes. This is not to say I haven't built some planes that are like, wow, this thing flies as high as far as javelin. But the same kind of bird, no, I don't need to use that. Javelin, it's a personal point of view. I find Javelin does the job. I have built other planes that do what Javelin does, but they do what Javelin does. Javelin is pretty much at the mercy of my throwing arm. Well, I haven't had anything beat that, so why should I bother updating it? It's just going to be a Javelin 2, you know, and this is my personal preference. Yours might be different. If you build a plane that does fly the same way as your interceptor and you feel like, well, this is a newer one, use it. Again, more power to you. I'm not going to do that. I like having a classic aircraft. Javelin's first flight was in 1988. That's pretty cool. Keeping that plane in the inventory. Until I can figure out something that flies better, Javelin's staying. And hopefully, I mean, like I said, hopefully you guys find a plane that you like that about. But again, some planes need technological advances. So, I mean, if you got a better attacker, a better attacker, a better attacker, a better bomber, I mean, there are some roles that are more in flex than others. And interceptor being essentially a rock with wings, you're going to find that once you find it, and once it's at the limit of your throwing arm, then you have the best interceptor you've got, especially if it goes there straight and fast, which, again, is up to your arm. So some technological advances are going to come along further than others. And this is exactly why I have, like, Wyverns and Novas and Venoms and stuff, and they've been built into now, whereas Javelin has been stuck 3 decades earlier. But that's why. Bombers, transports, mine go hand in hand. Yours could be different planes. Mine are hopefully soon to be different planes, but we'll see where they end up in the future. And that's, I don't know. I hope that was as clear as mud. Hope that kind of clarified some things. You got the 5 rolls, 4 attack, or 2 attack, 2 strike, 1 interceptor, diversification. Build as many of each type as you want. We'll make squadrons for them. Keep them at 5. Totally up to you. Tell you, it's a little bit easier to keep coding them when you have as many bases as somebody like I do, and then you have so many planes as I do. It's a little bit easier to keep track of them if you just have one, or if you just station them at one place. But it is, once you're in, it is your Air Force. You can do with it what you see fit. Um, Again, I hope that was as clear as mud. Do you have any questions? Feel free to post them in response. Um, we'll be doing this again soon. Good talking with y'all. We're going to conclude this one and keep them flying, people.